to Rainbow Soul Vodcast, where our soulstrology comes forward to help you manage your everyday life, with forecasts and deep dives on natal charts and queer perspectives on the planets, transits, and more. A group discussion about upcoming transits with tips on how to read these transits in your own chart. Hollis offers years of wisdom and natal chart knowledge with Bright Hawk's positive perspective and Lacrosse's inquiry. We offer the complete queer astrology experience. Welcome to Rainbow Soul. Please help us by subscribing, sharing, and commenting and reviewing. You can also learn where else Rainbow Soul is offered on our website at rainbowsoul.show.
Hello. Welcome to Rainbow Soulstrology Forecast. I am Hollis Taylor, and I'm one of the astrologers here. I do natal chart readings, synastry readings, and a death chart reading, which is for when someone's died in your life and you'd like to more deeply understand their death and how that relates to you. I don't know many other astrologers that do it. I don't know any. And you can find out more about me in my in the link below.
Hi there, I'm Bright Hawk. You can always learn more about me at brighthawkproductions.com. I'm an artist and author, astrologer, musician. Happy to be here. And
I'm Lacrosse Ortiz, the creator of the Fool's Journey Color Journal, also the podcast Master of None. You can find it on Spotify and a bunch of different other places. And you can find me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram.
Fantastic. I'm grateful you're here, Lacrosse. All right. Well, I'm grateful that Bright Hawk is here to play us some music. So let's take a minute to center and ground ourselves, put our feet on the floor. Take a few deep breaths. And allow yourself to find your breath. To just relax into that breath. Take a deep breath and just let all the stress or tension out of your body. And I invite you to take a walk. And this time we're going to be walking in a very large dome. In a very large dome where above us is the sky with stars, but it easily changes. And as you're looking up, the sky turns into an astrology circle chart. And as you stand there and stare at the chart, you notice these lines in the middle, different colors. And you can tell that several of them create these large triangles. There are planets on the tips of these triangles. And two of the planets that make the bottom of the triangle are directly across the sky from each other. And as you see it drawn on the huge dome above you in red, it is drawn out and highlighted for you, showing you what is called an opposition. Opposites two planets opposite in the sky from each other, creating a push-pull where things are hard to resolve, and the only way to resolve is to find balance, because the two must exist. They must exist in opposite from each other. And then you can see two lines from each of those opposites pointing up to one more planet in what is called a square. And while these types of conversations between the planets are difficult, they're much easier to resolve than that opposition. There is a resolution. We must just search for it. And as the highlighter draws and highlights these aspects for you, these lines, you are reminded of all the challenges you've come through in your life. All the things that you've overcome, all the things that you've mastered because they were hard. And how you actually got better at some things because they were a challenge. And then as the entire triangle is highlighted and pulled out of the chart towards you, you are told that this is called a T-square. And the T-square, while it is difficult, it leads to mastery. It leads to resilience. Creating tough calluses on our feet or hands, pushing us forward through those challenges, maybe creating tougher skin or a higher mentality or a higher vibration, where we are above that, beyond that. And as the T-square slides back into that circle chart, we are reminded that without challenges in life, life would be pretty darn boring. And that challenges is like the salt and pepper on your dinner. Challenges are like the spices in our food, the flavoring in our ice cream. And we can reflect on our own life challenges and maybe find some gratitude for them. And as you come back into yourself, come back to your body, you can feel that gratitude in your heart for maybe some of the challenges that have led you to mastery. And as you come back into your here and your now. You can smile with a sense of gratitude in your heart. With your feet on the floor, wiggle your toes and stretch your fingers. And take a deep breath and open your eyes. Come back into the here and now at Rainbow Soul. Woohoo! Well done, Bright Hawk.
Well done, Hollis.
Well, I hope that's helpful in understanding that major aspect called a T-square. It's quite common, it happens a lot, and it's in a lot of people's charts. So if you're like, do I have one of those in my chart? Yeah, you probably do. Most of us do. I've seen some charts with none, for sure. But a lot of people do. Some people that have no T-squares and very little squares or oppositions in their chart, I have met those people, and they tend to sometimes they're very privileged. And sometimes they know it and sometimes they don't. A lot of times they don't know how privileged they are. And then if somebody says something to them, they'll be quite defensive until they do realize that they are. Some people are completely open and they'll be like, yeah, I've had a pretty easy life. I haven't really had it that hard. But it's usually because they know people that have had hard life. And I noticed that they're not as resilient. People with no T-squares, or not enough oppositions and squares in their chart, when something does go wrong, they are like fish out of water. They don't know what to do. And yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to witness.
What I thought you were going to say was that they would lack motivation.
Sometimes they do.
Yeah.
Sometimes they lack motivation.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The initiative.
The drive.
Yeah, the drive.
Uh-huh.
Because it's just so easy to kick back.
Especially if they're like Mars is like in a water sign or something like that. And then you're like, oh my. Yeah, so yeah, sometimes that happens and they lack motivation, they lack drive, but not always. Sometimes they just they don't necessarily lack drive. Like they might have their Mars on their ascendant or something, but it's not in a T-square. And they have plenty of motivation to do things, but everything they do just pretty much comes together easily. But the interesting thing that happens is most of us have this thing called a progressed chart that happens as you age. And so as you age, some of the planets that are born when you're born, they're retrograde, or some of the planets like sort of change the way they because you are always changing. And so the progressed chart shows us how you will change and who you will change into. And so a lot of times those people with a lot of privilege, as they get older, their progress chart shows not so much privilege. And then things start to go wrong, maybe as they're older, maybe they have some health problems or they lose their spouse or something like that happens. And they're like, oh, and they're completely lost. So
at what age should you look at your progression chart? Like when should you start really?
Definitely after your Saturn returns.
Okay.
So that's 30. I look at mine pretty regularly because I have changed and I'm almost 50. I'm 49, and I notice, and I look at mine at least once a year. You should look at your solar return chart as well, which is just like things will change. The sun will change slightly, like its aspects, or the moon will definitely change, and that's what you want to look at in your solar returns, because the moon will affect your year to come. And then in your progressed chart, your sun will change, your rising will change, your Venus, Mars, and moon will all change. So, like, I was born with Venus retrograde, but since I think it was about 35, my Venus has been direct. And Venus retrograde indicates a lot of times low self-esteem or self-esteem problems. And I definitely had that until my Saturn returns. And then after I got through my Saturn returns, I sort of, because it's also not well aspected. It's like part of a T-square or some craziness. And so it was really hard, and I learned how to master self-esteem, and I learned how to master self-love and things like that. And now in my 40s and 50s, and I assume also in my 50s, Venus will be direct and won't be so badly aspected, and I don't suffer from terrible self-esteem anymore. Like terrible, like I was a cutter and suicidal and da da da. From teenage years all the way through until I was in my 30s.
And does it keep changing, like after every, like, let's say Saturn return? Or?
It does a little bit. Yeah, so like then it might change. So like it'll change after your Saturn returns, and then you'll come back when you're almost 50 and it will be changed again. And you'll be like, oh, okay. So now I'm no longer a Virgo, I'm now a Scorpio. Okay. And so looking at your progress chart can be really helpful, just because it can really help you understand how you're changing and what you're changing from, and how it's shifting you and how you've grown. And I just find that it's very insightful and helps you really sort of comprehend where you're going. So you can get your progress chart at astro.com, pretty sure. And of course, I do progress charts. When I look at anyone's natal chart that's over 40, I look at your progress chart, because I'm like, oh no, we need to look at your progress chart. Because if you're asking me questions about your career, or or your relationships or anything like that, all those things will change by the time you get to 40. And that totally makes sense, because who the hell's the same person when they were 20?
Right. Gosh, right? I hope you're not the same.
Not even close.
Yeah, I hope you're not the same. And if you are, we might need to check in on that.
Yeah, right.
So yeah. So all right, well, let's take a look at the forecast here. And I'm gonna share it. There we are. And this is for September 16th to the 22nd. Okay. So we're starting to head into the fall.
Yeah.
Yay. Now, here you go. You can start to see some opposition. See those red lines going directly across in the center. Now, there's not exactly quite a T-square quite yet, but it'll be some, I think it's tomorrow, on the next day. This is Monday, the 16th. The things I notice is that, first of all, there's like this grand trine and this kite, right? And you can kind of see that in blue, right? And the grand trine is actually really good, because it usually makes things come together easily, and a kite really sort of takes you off towards amazing things. And it's all involved in planets, and not quick moving planets. The fastest moving planet there is probably the sun at the bottom of the kite there. But you can see a big blue triangle that's connected to Uranus over in Taurus at 27 degrees, and Pluto down there at 29 degrees Capricorn. And that you can see that in the third piece of the pie. And so you can see that's kind of like a blue triangle. And then there's like a little triangle at the top of it, and kind of looks like a kite, right? And it's pointing to Neptune. And Neptune is retrograde. And the other interesting thing is all of the planets are retrograde, except for the sun, of course, because the sun doesn't go retrograde. But Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus are all retrograde. And I'm just going to say, like, politically, this is really good, because even with the oppositions, and I'll try to talk about it as far as like our personal lives and our major life and our public lives, our country and our world, is that Grand Trine and Kite are really pulling from where we should be going or where the light wants to lead us, and making us look at our belief systems and review how those are. Because when it's in retrograde, it tends to go internal, regardless of what planet it is. And it tends to also do the opposite. Okay. So we have Uranus going backwards. Uranus is usually revolutionary, but it's going backwards. Does that mean that we're going back like some people would like to do? No, it means that we're going, do we want it to be that way? Do we want to move forward? So we're like having that sort of question in our heart and souls. And some people clearly do want it to go back to something that it was. And then Pluto usually is also about change and transformation, but it's also about power and control, ancestors, and it can sometimes also be about like fear. And you can see it's going backwards. So if it's doing the opposite of that, it's helping us feel empowered, hopefully, that we can change, that the potential to change is there. And then we have Neptune at the tip of that kite, which is in Pisces. And Neptune's really, really strong. Okay. Out of all these planets, Neptune is the strongest because it's in its rulership. Okay. And Neptune is about illusions and delusions. So when it's in its rulership, it means it's more of an influence than the other planets. Okay. And so you should always look at that, because when planets are exalted, they're even stronger than they are when they're in their rulership. Okay. And I'm pretty sure Pluto's not, Pluto and Uranus are, neither of them are exalted. Okay. So Uranus is exalted in Scorpio and Pluto is exalted in, I think it's Pisces. Yeah, it is. So then the strongest one there would be Neptune. Okay. And the sun is in its rulership in Leo, and it's exalted in Aries. Okay. So all of those planets are, they're not really in their fall or anything like that, which is another way of talking about their power. Okay. Like, how powerful are they? Now, Uranus is in its fall. Okay. And, which, just means that it's not as influential. Okay. And so Neptune is over there, and it's at the tip of the kite, and that's showing us where we're going. So like if you're flying a kite, you have the bottom of the kite on your string and you can steer it. And at the tip is usually where the kite is going. And if it comes down, it's going to sort of spiral with that tip heading down. And you can see Neptune in Pisces at 28 degrees at the tip there, directly across from the sun. And I'm pretty sure this entire thing is asking us to say, do I really think, like in a political storm, it's like, do I really think this guy is being honest and is worth hiring as the president? Okay. And I really think that that's happening. So that's good news, hopefully. And then also, I think in our lives, it also could be like, what belief system have I screwed up? What belief system do I have about myself or about my relationships or about my spirituality that I'm not really following? Or I think it's probably going to be about health, just because of the Pisces Virgo opposition. Okay. So the sun is over in Virgo, and that's about wellness and how can you take care of yourself. And so the sun is like, well, your wellness is better when you meditate every day, or when you do yoga, or when you have a spiritual daily practice, or when you eat healthier. Okay. And then Pisces is over here like, but it's so much fun to eat cake every day. Okay. And so, um, and so you have that kind of pull in the opposite direction. And and I think the kite is asking you to find balance. And I think we will find balance this week. But I think that kite is pretty much going to be the theme for most of the week, and those oppositions. Okay. Now the oppositions will get a little bit more intense as the week goes on, and we will form some T squares, which might present some challenges. But that kite overall, I would say, is the overall theme for the week, because it's pretty much there all week long.
Yeah. And the moon in Pisces, of course, is going to answer to Neptune as well. So Neptune is kind of running the show.
Which is about illusions and delusions.
About illusions and delusions. That's right. So, an opposite Mercury, communication about it, trine Mars, taking action about it, and then conjuncting Saturn. How are you going to vote?
Right.
Saturn is structure, right? Saturn is sort of cold and fatherly, and the taskmaster, if you will. So very interesting chart that points to multiple things,
and I see
multiple themes.
I see it's void in the morning, on Monday morning.
Right before it goes into Pisces, it'll be void just for a bit, from 5 in the morning till 9:39.
Yeah, it's not too bad. So if you have something important you want to do at work, or something you want to take care of, you probably could during that time.
Right?
Yeah.
Good time to take care of yourself.
Yeah, something you don't want noticed, something you don't want any drama about.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's what the void moon is. And so between 5 in the morning and 9:30, that's even on the East Coast, because that's mountain time. So
Right.
that'd be 7 in the morning to like 11:30 in the morning on the East Coast of the United States. Okay. And you can do any time conversion from there.
Right.
Now,
the big headline of the day is that the lunar eclipse is on the 17th. And in mountain time, it'll happen at 8:30. And of course, the lunar eclipse, the full moon is now in Pisces, and the moon is going to be conjuncting Neptune. And of course, Neptune is a loose conjunction with the North Node. And the South Node's kind of by itself, but obviously a lunar eclipse is all about the nodes. The North Node is in Aries, the South Node is in Libra. So if you have major placements like your sun, moon, or rising in Aries or Libra, you're certainly going to feel this eclipse.
Yeah, and if you have anything in Pisces, because the moon is there.
Right.
Pisces or Virgo, Libra, or Aries. So those, and plus also I think everyone will feel it to some degree.
Of course, yeah.
Even those in a square to like the sun, like in Gemini or in Sagittarius, those could probably really feel it as more like a square, which is just a challenge that you can overcome. But if you have strong planets in Pisces, or strong planets in Virgo, and just because the nodes are in Libra and Aries, you might really feel this eclipse. Okay. And this eclipse is really about, now the lunar, so it goes from the lunar eclipse on the 17th to, I think it's exactly 2 weeks later, right?
Right. 2 weeks later, on the new moon, it becomes a solar eclipse, right?
Mm-hmm. And so usually the lunar, so the whole eclipse process is like a transformational thing. Okay. And so the lunar eclipse starting on the 17th is more like an emotional sort of tap, tap, tap or poke about something. So you could have an emotional like outburst or an emotional experience, especially if you have placements in Pisces or Virgo. because the sun or the moon are opposite. And also, if you happen to be in the generation that is just now having their Saturn returns and your Saturn is in Pisces, you're probably really going to feel this.
Mhm.
Okay. Because Saturn is at 15 degrees and it's going retrograde. So you might want to look at where your Saturn is. And Saturn usually sort of it rules your entire system. Okay. And it's directly across from Mercury. So it's going to be like, I want to be doing this, but I'm doing this. And I hate doing this and I want to be doing that. So it's going to be like this push and pull energy. And then with the moon and the sun directly across from each other, it just is that full moon energy, and it's really going to erupt something emotionally in you. But usually eclipse process is about changing yourself. It's about shifting from one thing to another. It's like the song, a total eclipse of the heart. But while it does kind of happen in the evening, in like overnight, it's not really overnight. It's like a couple of weeks. Okay. And so there's going to be some sort of emotional awakening or awareness around the 17th. It could absolutely happen on Monday. It could absolutely happen on the weekend before. Okay. And so you're going to have this emotional awakening that's going to lead you into the eclipse to help you become aware of something. And remember, the universe is always leading us to a good place. The thing is that I also notice on the eclipse is that the T squares form.
Yes.
So we have a couple of T squares, and there are challenges, but there's two main T squares. One's with the moon, which will only last that day, and then the other one is with Neptune and the sun. And what I would say is that
And also Mercury opposite Saturn is T square to Jupiter.
okay, and Mercury opposite to Saturn, but Saturn's not in a square to anything. So that's why it's not a full T square yet. So so Mercury is opposite Saturn, and so that's going to be about that wanting to do this, wanting to change your system, but and maybe being able to speak it out loud. But the T squares,
Square to Jupiter, sorry.
okay, yeah, the moon and Neptune are definitely square to Jupiter,
Mhm.
and so and Jupiter's also, the sun is also in a square to Jupiter, creating that T square, and so the T square is pointing at Jupiter there. And so when I usually look at the tip of the T square, because that'll give you a good idea of where it will kind of affect, although it will be pulling from those other two areas. It will require a balance in order for you to be able to um, overcome whatever it is. So in the big world, that's about expansion and expanding our minds and maybe getting out to people and saying, hey, you have to vote. You have to register to vote. We can't let this jackass be a president. I know you haven't voted in the past, but could you please register and vote? Because look, Kamala is a little bit better, and this is why, right? Okay. So maybe encouraging those people that there's so many people not registered to vote. Have you ever seen that number? It's ridiculously high.
Mm.
There are some people that are like 30 and never voted.
Mm.
Okay, so if you're in the United States, please register to vote, and please, hopefully, vote for Kamala. If you're listening to this, you probably would. But Jupiter in Gemini, is very like broadcasting. It's an expansion of a word.
Mhm.
Okay, it's like spreading the word and with Mercury in opposition to Saturn, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about our system is broke. Please register to vote. Please help us fix it. Okay, get people on board. And that's really what that T square is about in the big world. But in your world, in your personal world, it's probably going to be about communicating with what you really want in your life, what you really need in your life with the people around you, and then hopefully also doing that, like implementing those things you want, getting them started. And that's the T square. I seen that the moon is conjunct to Neptune. What do you think about that, Bright Hawk?
Well, of course, the moon is answering to Neptune, and now it's conjunct Neptune in Pisces. So, just like you said before, with the power of the kite, and Neptune is still going to be powerful, evaluating and reevaluating, because, of course, it's retrograde. So, when it's retrograde, we're reviewing whether our dreams are appropriate, our visions are clear, or do they have some illusions involved where we need to let go of those illusions? And of course, right next to it is the North Node, which is makes it all feel very destined, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing there, of course, is it's all about relationships. Who are we going forward with in relationship? And communicating with those people, because of course all of this is opposite Mercury and the Sun.
Well, and Gemini also has a lot to do with relationship. It's the twin, you know.
Right.
So it's very
Good
much
point.
about being in connected with each other. And so I think there's a lot of healing going on in this eclipse and making us aware of what's important and pushing us through transformation in the United States last hurrah of the Pluto returns. Hopefully is Pluto, since Pluto has returned to Capricorn, it's really making us say, you know, we're really feeling that, please, let's not go back. Please, we don't want to do that again. And I think that that's the overall feeling.
Yeah, I think that's what the Grand Trine is giving some hope, especially
Right.
With Pluto's involvement in the Sun. It's like, you know, maybe things could get better. Uranus is retrograde, so it's not as havocy as normal in Taurus.
Right. And it's
get grounded, get real, get practical, get going.
Right. Instead of feeling so chaotic. And as we go on through the eclipse will actually be on the 17th. But of course, those trines and oppositions will stay, even though the full moon. Now, as a longtime witch and a spiritual person that honors the moon, I've always honored the full and the new moon like 3 days. It's like the day before, the day of, and the day after. So I still feel like the eclipse could happen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You know,
it's funny that you said that, because I almost left full moon, but the moon changes signs. It goes from Pisces to Aries.
Okay.
And I was like, well.
And it is void for like 22 minutes.
Yeah. When it switches up.
Yeah.
And, but I agree with you. As a witch, as a practitioner, 3 days makes sense.
Right.
And I often think of the full moon as 2 days.
Right. Now, this is a 22-minute void from 9:02 in the morning to 9:24.
Right.
So mountain time, just for those that are not looking at the screen.
Right. And now the moon is going over the nodes, going over the North Node. Okay. And now the North Node, of course, is in Aries. And so now the moon has stepped into Aries. It's conjuncts the North Node. It's obviously still opposite the Sun and the South Node. And now it enters into a square with Mars. And that's going to be a little intense.
I'm looking at that because that's a T-square there. Mars is in a square to the South Node, to both of the nodes, plus the moon. And then, of course, the moon is opposite the South Node. The North and South Node are always opposite of each other. So that's but that Mars is in Cancer, and Mars in Cancer is in its fall. So I think that is very simply, if you make aggressive actions, it's probably not going to go well. It's not going to be the way that you imagined. It's not going to turn out the way you hoped. So I wouldn't say, not that any politicians would take my advice, but on Wednesday, I would not take any kind of aggressive action, because Mars is in its fall, especially if you have Mars in Cancer, or if you look and Mars is the transiting Mars is in a square to anything in your chart that has to do with what you want to do. I would just wait a few days, because this is definitely, Mars is very much about action and aggression and assertiveness. So you don't want to take assertiveness in this moment that's aggressive. And so you want to wait. You want to feel it. You want to make sure you get the emotions. So if you are having a very emotional eclipse and you're feeling it, don't take action yet. Okay? Just remember it's yet. The time will come for you to take that action, but not yet.
Check your impulsivity. Saturn, it almost reminds me of the way Mars, when Mars is retrograde, if you take aggressive action against Mars in retrograde, it boomerangs on you.
Right.
As in,
I don't think it would boomerang, but yeah.
So you really want to be careful when Mars is kind of afflicted to not do things that you would regret or that could come back on you, where you're like, practice what you preach.
I just think you'd probably embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
You probably embarrass yourself on the 18th on Wednesday. Okay. And as we move forward, the good news is that the nodes will actually move direction. So instead of going backwards, they'll start going forward, which just kind of changes their energy a little bit. Usually when they're retrograde, we're always moving towards our destiny and moving away from where we came from. But then when they go direct, I notice there's like something that was destined to happen sort of comes to life in our lives, sometimes on the world stage as well. And so this is about relationships, particularly relationships we used to have, and moving to a more independent or strong leadership type of placement. So the nodes will move direction in this time, therefore sort of adding a different energy to that T-square in Mars. Would I take action today? If you can't wait any longer, today's the better day. Thursday's the better day. But I would try to wait until like Friday or the following week. Yeah, or the following week. So if you can. If you can't, Thursday's better than Wednesday. Okay? And also let's see. That's really the most important thing, is that the nodes moved.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I would point out is there's a yod pointing to Venus from Uranus and a sextile Neptune. So Venus becomes very important. Relationships, values. Uranus, of course, is change. Neptune is dreams and visions. So yods, as we've talked about in the past, are also known as a finger of God, also known as an inconjunct, which is what sets it up.
That yod must come true later in the evening, huh?
Yeah.
It
perfects over the 3 days.
Okay, yeah.
And then, it just starts on this day, and then it really becomes much more precise over the next 2 days. Yeah. Do you want to say anything about the yod?
Just that, we're pulling from the Neptune retrograde, which is, like we said, about delusions and illusions and sort of reviewing those. And then Uranus, which is in its fall, so it's not very strong, but it's not pushing towards revolution. It's kind of like, but I want to keep these things the same. And it's pointing, though, to Venus in Libra. And I think, what I really like politically, what I would have been really refreshed to feel compared to like 2016, the last time Trump ran against a woman, which does back then, there were a lot of people that were uncomfortable with having a woman president, which of course for me, I was like, the hell does that have to do with anything?
Right.
And in fact, I think it might be better. Haven't you checked out, like, indigenous cultures have always put women in charge of politics because they're better level-headed, they're better at relationships, duh. And and they're better at regulating their emotions than men are, because they have to be, because they have a period every month. And so I'm just kind of like, and I've been really refreshed that is not part of the conversation this time. Like, this time, Kamala is there, and I haven't really heard it come up much.
Well, the far right had some pretty shitty things to say about her when she first got announced, and things like she slept her way to the top.
Oh
And
my
the
God.
DEI hire, and just
Okay,
really
but
bad
generally,
attacks.
I
But
think most people.
it seems less of an issue than it did last time.
Okay.
But it is, you know.
And do you think that would have anything to do with Venus being in its rulership there? Because, and
That's
pulling from Neptune back there.
It's a good point. It's
And
very valid.
yeah.
Very interesting, because Venus rules Libra, so she is in a rulership, very powerful.
And Venus also rules Taurus, which is where Uranus is. And that almost makes me feel like it is destined for us to look at a woman leader and realize what the power of having a female leader is. I mean, other countries have already done this. Why are we so slacking in this? We are lacking in this. And with that yod pointing to Venus in Libra, which is in its rulership, and it's about relationships, but it's also about female empowerment and feminism and things like that, because Libra likes things fair, and Venus is very female empowerment, including what Nadia Shaw was even saying about, I think it was the Mexican perspective of Venus, about being that's almost like aggressive feminism in a way, assertive feminism, and that's the representative of Venus. And I could see that, because typically Venus is that feminine power, and it is in relationship there with Taurus, where it's usually a little bit more about stuff and resources. But I really think that yod is kind of pointing to us and to people saying, well, why do we think having a woman leader would be a problem? I actually think it might be better, considering the guy she's up against. Okay. So, I mean, and she's shown that she can be strong, that she can be present, that she can be tougher, and that she's got a backbone. She's got a backbone, which makes me feel really good.
Yeah. Intelligent and still kind human.
Yes, exactly. And then that Venus in our personal lives, I think, could also point to any kind of feminism or any part of us that still works from an old thought pattern that is not feminist. And then also that sort of that putting our resources into what's important to us and what's fair. And so that's really what the yod is pointing to. It's not just it's about putting our values up and saying, well, it doesn't matter if a leader is male or female. It should matter who they are, not what genitalia they have, right? Okay. And yes, that's Libra. That's Libra. Libra's very fair. And Venus also has to do with money and resources. So it could be about, how am I spending my money? Where am I putting my money, and what am I spending it on? And so,
well, and we also have another T-square. So with the moon in Taurus, the ruler of Taurus is Venus. And so the moon is opposite Venus and a T-square to Pluto. So I think we're again pointing to that same empowerment of women. You might feel differently about it because the moon is involved. And Pluto, things are changing. And a very positive change, I would hope, given that configuration and the empowerment of Venus. Venus is very dominant in the chart.
Okay, so I see it will move Thursday night from being opposite Venus into Taurus, where Venus is its rulership. So it will be having a conversation with Venus for quite some time on Friday.
Exactly.
So okay, Thursday, Friday. So I really feel like this is a time for us really to change our value system, to change how our resources are being spent, how we see ourselves, and how we express ourselves. But it will all come together fairly easily. But there will be some challenges where we have to change or work with others. I think the working with others will probably, like, getting others on board.
Yeah, and take time to have a good morning. 8:38, the void of course moon begins, and it finishes at 9:03 a.m. Mountain Time. So just, 25 minutes, and good time to just get grounded for your day.
Right. Now, the nodes are still moving in the forward direction for a little while longer. But the oppositions are really getting to be more exact. With the sun at 29, it's actually exact on Friday, and into Saturday is pretty darn close with just 1 degree from Neptune. And that opposition of Neptune and the sun, I really feel like the sun is like pointing us forward, showing us where we're going, showing us sort of like our vitality and our strength. And Neptune is like, but what are your belief systems? And it's retrograde. So it's saying, is that belief system correct? Is that religion correct? Is that spirituality, that spiritual belief, is that really what you're feeling? Does that need to change? And there's going to be a balance between the two. Remember what I said about oppositions, is that the way to resolve it is to find a balance. And so maybe some of those belief systems are okay, but we have to find a balance that will still allow you to move forward.
Yeah. And of course, it's the day of balance. The 21st is equinox. But of course, it's the 22nd that is the day the sun moves into Libra.
Holy trine.
Holy trine, yeah. And it starts to double up. And of course, Mercury's come back into Virgo, and now it's about to catch up with the sun. So they're starting another conversation.
Yeah, so I feel like this is the weekend actually looks really good for the equinox. It's a really good time to really do something good, to build relationships, to connect with others. It's interesting because I think we might be going to the Mind Body Expo. So to explore your spirituality, what do you believe, and how does that affect your life, and how can you make improvements to your wellness? Especially still with Mercury in Virgo. I feel like Mercury in Virgo is constantly talking to our wellness. And when the sun moves into Libra, it's going to be like, okay, well, and what about your relationships? Are they well? Are they healthy? And what are you doing about it? So I feel like the weekend's a good weekend.
Yeah, indeed. Sorry, I forgot to change that Taurus moon to Gemini moon.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just feel like it's a pretty good week overall.
And Sunday with those grand trines, things should be really feeling good and flowy and easy and
really beautiful.
Whatever you had to wait to let clear on Wednesday, by the weekend, you're flowing.
Right.
Should be, hopefully.
Yep.
Let us know. Let us know in the comments.
Let us know how your week goes. We'd love to hear from you. All right. So Lacrosse, what did you want to add anything?
Well, we're leaving the bear and going into the raven. And I think that's really, it's showing where we're going from like big brute force, could be aggression, all that, and going into a more level-headed thought. Because that's how it kind of looks like. If you're not careful, you can come off as a bear and you can come off pretty aggressive. But if you hold back, the crow and the raven are very known for their intelligence, like high intelligence. It's equal to, I think it's like a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old. That's how.
Wow.
Yeah, they're really intelligent. So don't be the bear that week. That's one time. Don't tune in. Just hold off till you can get to that raven and you can kind of sit back, because they're notorious troubleshooters as well. So crows and ravens don't just go out and do things. Everything is calculated, it's well thought, it's planned, and it's troubleshooted. So I'm just saying, give yourself some time to get to that weekend and don't rush with the bear. Just kind of hibernate for the rest of the week until it passes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. Yeah, the raven and the crow.
So is the raven the one that warbles? Do you know what I mean? Between the crow and the raven, one of them warbles. Is that the raven?
The raven.
What is a warble?
Yeah.
Like a turkey?
And you're like, what?
I'm pretty sure it's the raven.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's the raven.
You almost think it's, I have literally sat there going, is that a turkey? Is that a,
yeah.
What am I hearing? And then finally, it'll go flying, and I'm like, that's who was making that sound.
It also depends, because ravens are more secluded, so they would be more in like the woods, mountains.
Up where we are.
Yeah, so you probably have more ravens. I'm not saying you don't have crows, but probably the ravens.
I think the crows are more down in town and lower
Yeah,
elevation.
yeah, because they
And
like people.
lately, we've had a really cute starling blue jay and a magpie that have been
Oh,
hopping around. And
Yeah.
the other morning,
They
I
have
was,
mohawks.
yeah,
how
they're
cute.
really cute.
They're fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful birds. All right. Well,
You got
thanks for
a
that, Lacrosse.
reading for us, Hollis?
And I'm going to pull 3 cards here from the Love is Love deck or the Pride deck that you can find. And each one of these cards is done by a different LGBTQ artist. Their name is listed at the bottom. And so this is the first card. This has to do with the past. And this is the Lover's card. This is really about the love and the support and even the community that you've experienced. You know, this is very much obviously pride. And this is a reminder that love is love and that we come together because of love. And that, you know, if you notice, there's like the Statue of Liberty in the background, but it's still, you know, all rainbow and it's all very much the queer march. And this is really about, yes, lovers, but it's also about the revolutionary energy of being lovers and how that changes everything. And this is a reminder of how things have shifted and changed in the past, because they certainly have. You know, there was a time where queers couldn't get married, and I remember that time. And now here is the Empress, where this is very much, this is in the here and now, and this is very much that goddess energy that holds all things sacred, all animals sacred, all parts of the earth sacred, earth, air, fire, water. This is about being a sacred being of the earth. This is about being a sacred person in relationship and in harmony to nature. And that's really what this is about. This is about being in harmony with nature and finding your own spiritual self, because it's the Empress. So
Beautiful.
it's really about finding your own spiritual self. And you can see that that in this image they're honoring all elements, everything from water with fishes down there, and air with birds, and earth. Okay, the tree is there, the dragonflies are there, the stars are there, and it's all gender expressions as well. There's a goddess symbol at the bottom, right? Okay, it's all levels of humanity and people. You can kind of see that with the little people right here, and on the other side by the deer there. It's very much about all things in harmony, and this is about a very harmonious card. And this is going forward. This is the Ace of Pentacles, which is about financial and resources, which I'm like, woohoo, Camilla will win. And you know, she'll be helping small businesses and people pay childcare and all kinds of great things. And this is the Ace of Pentacles. This is about resources. This is about having all the things you need and more. So this is the Ace of Pentacles, which is a really great card, and it's telling us that your resources will come. Now, remember, Spirit, the cards are also reminding us that first of all, we have won before, and there is hope. And in the past, things have changed, and they will change again. And that's what this reminder card is, the Lover's card, of the revolutionary event, the revolutionary effect of love. Okay, whether it's just two people falling in love and how that changes everything, or even in the world, love is love, right? We've changed the world by being queer, and going forward, being in harmony with all things, all nature, even the pain in the butts. And being in harmony with those things, that means drawing boundaries. And so, you know, because you can see she has boundaries, right? Okay, she has the tree as a boundary, and that's in harmony with all things. That's what keeps you in harmony, is having boundaries. And going forward, the Ace of Pentacles is the reward. That is what's coming to you, which is great. Having all the resources, having all your needs met, and being able to go forward with all of your needs, especially resources, financial and other resources, ready for you. So
Cool. What a great reading.
Yeah, I thought that was really beautiful,
Those some
especially
powerful cards.
I was thinking about the Ace of Pentacles. Makes me think about that Venus yod that we looked about.
Yeah.
So because like I was saying, Venus doesn't just rule feminism, but also rules financial resources and things like that.
That's very cool.
And it could very well be that, hopefully, that I think Kamala would lead us as a country into a more financial stability. And I think a lot of people hopefully are also trying to find financial stability. Okay.
Yeah, for real. Well, we hope you have an awesome week and that this has been helpful. Blessings for equinox. Happy birthday to Libras. That's you.
Yep.
Happy full moon. Blessings, blessings, blessings. May your blessings also be blessings. We hope you have a great week.
Yep. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. Any way you can support us, please make sure you do. And thank you for watching Rainbow Soulstrology, where we try to be a bridge between you and the stars.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this week's Soulstrology and subscribing, liking, sharing, and reviewing. We hope you enjoy this dose of Soulstrology and encourage you to embrace the week ahead with an open mind and heart so that you may integrate the deepest of lessons from the stars. Take a moment to step outside and honor the planets, stars, and moon in the sky with your heart. Integrate the messages that resonate and leave the rest for someone else. We deeply appreciate each and every one of you. Always remember that you are a perfectly unique human with an exclusive star map of your destiny, your soul purpose, and your heart's desire. Thank you again for tuning in to Rainbow Soul.